Okay, so I wanted to thank everybody that came tonight. My name is Patty Schramm. I'm the parent resource trainer and coordinator for the SALT Talks. SALT Talks usually covers the counties around Southwest Ohio, specifically Butler, and then we have Montgomery, Greene, and Warren also that hold SALT sessions. So we wanted to, this month, we had just finished up an independent living series in January and February. So March, I wanted to focus a little bit on services. So last night we talked about the Montgomery, Greene, and Warren County services. And tonight we're going to be targeting the Butler County services. If you're not from Butler County and attending, just take what I usually suggest doing is take a little bit of information that maybe it's shared tonight, and you can take it back to your SSA or transition coordinator and talk to them about it. If you're from another county, just say, hey, this is what I heard about last night. Can this apply to my case, or is this, you can apply to my situation? So tonight, like I said, we have several representatives here from Butler County. And we have Kim Grimes, who we're going to let go first, but she's with Eligibility. And then we have Beth Risner with the Employment Navigation Department. Amy is with the SSA Department. And then we have Connie, who covers the community outreach department. So I'm going to turn it over. Let me make you co-host there, Kim. One second. And then you can share your screen if you would like. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Grimes. I am one of 2 eligibility coordinators here at Butler County. So my role is essentially kind of the first stop in the eligibility process. So, I'm the one who initially speaks with individuals or family members once we get a referral. So the referral process looks like there's essentially just a few documents that we request, and what we usually do is email that checklist out to families, and it'll be very specific, what documents are needed, and those include, most importantly, the documentation of a qualifying DD diagnosis. If they're in school, copies of their most recent ETR and IEPs, and then just copies of the birth certificate and social security card, and that's it. So once we get all of those documents, the next step is actually the assessment. And we use the COEDI for kids under 16, and then the OEDI for people 16 and over. And those basically look at just different areas of daily skills, things like communication, mobility, self-sufficiency. So the rule is basically there have to be at least 3 areas of limitations in order to qualify. So, once someone is eligible, then they are assigned to we call it the Information and Referral Department. So that's one of 2 SSAs who kind of initially talk to the family if they're new to the agency, and they really, review all the options, services offered. And then at that point, the family can decide if they would like kind of, a more ongoing, I kind of call it just, more involved kind of SSA, or they can just stay with them with the INR. And they're kind of just there as an as needed basis. If they need to call and ask questions or need referrals, they can just call and ask. Otherwise, they're not quite as involved as the other kind of ongoing SSA. So it's a fairly easy process. Mostly the main difficulty is for some is getting the documentation of the qualifying diagnosis. Just different circumstances sometimes makes that difficult, but for the most part, families can get that in. and get that eligibility established, and then they're good for services.
Just a question in general,
Mhm.
Kim, is age. So is there a different process, like if they're an early intervention, and like most of these maybe are, someone may be looking at it the first time as an older student, or
Mhm.
older adult. Is there a limitation, not limitation, is there a big difference in the various ages when applying for eligibility?
The only difference is for kids that are ages 3 to 5. And the one main difference being they don't have to go through the assessment part. They would provide still all of the same paperwork, but they don't have to go through the assessment. So for ages 3 to 5, they are eligible with either a qualifying diagnosis by itself or having at least 2 developmental delays on their, IEPs.
And someone can reach out even if their son or daughter or grandson or becomes 45 or 50 and haven't really tied into services, they can reach out, correct?
They can. I can tell you a lot of times it's a lot harder, but yes, they can. Basically, as long as they've got documentation, that's the key. That's what makes it a little tricky when people are that age. Just oftentimes the documentation just isn't there. They can't access it. But sometimes it works out. So yes, I mean, the answer to that is definitely yes. They can at least, make the referral, and we can try to work on that. Mhm.
We posted the website there in the chat box for the Butler County Board of DD. Do you have a contact, the eligibility number? Can you type that into the chat box if someone would like
Sure.
to, that we can share then?
Sure, yeah. It actually goes through Amy Holland first. All referrals go through her, and then each one gets assigned either to myself or Kathy, but I'll put her number in there.
So they have a starting place, just something,
Yes.
where to start or where to begin. Okay, great. Is there anything else you'd like to add? We can move, before we move on.
I think that's basically about it. There's not really any documentation for me to share because, I usually just send an email checklist of the documents that are needed. You know, but because most people really, you just have to submit the documents. There's not really anything that somebody has to fill out that we send them. So, and there's a little bit more too on the website about that under the eligibility process.
Okay, so yeah, so that you can look at the website and go to the eligibility drop down. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
very good. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Beth, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I sure will. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for spending your dinner time with us. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen here because I created a little one-page document to kind of help you better understand the employment services. Okay. Share. And just 1 second here. Can you all see the document now? Okay, good deal. All right, so introduction to the Butler County Employment Services team. We consist of 3 members. Myself, I'm the Employment Services Coordinator, and then Libby Grove and Alyssa Smith. They are our 2 employment navigators. And what they do is they are responsible, they partner with the SSAs for the oversight of all the employment services. So they are going to make sure when they get a referral that a positive employment outcome is carried out as a result of that. So let's take a look here because I love numbers and statistics. I put this little pie chart on here for us. But our current employment rate is 34.2. which I think is pretty good overall for people that we serve. And our busy navigators are working with a total of 104 consumers, trying to get them gainfully employed in jobs that they enjoy. So I always like to point out who our top 5 employers are. And how I came up with this result was I went in and actually counted how many people we have working at each facility. So number 1 is Kroger. We have 73 people actually employed with Kroger's throughout the county. And McDonald's, number 2. They've been hiring like crazy lately. Walmart, Miami University, and Belstein, also known as TKB, they make car locally in Fairfield. So looking at who has hired so far for 2020, we've got Home Depot, McDonald's, Chili's, the Hilton Inn, Red Robin, Atrium Hospital, Kroger, Liberty Center Mall. We actually just had 2 people get hired at Liberty Center Mall. So if you're out shopping, they're working hard. Lowe's, Story Point Nursing Home in the dietary area. It's been wonderful, that partnership, to see our consumers, working with the residents and learning new skills, and some of them even moving up. So, and then we have Kids Are Kids daycare, because a lot of kids now are starting to get back into daycares. So we actually have one young man who is a driver for Kids Are Kids daycare center. So going into a little bit more detail about the specific types of employment services that we offer. One of my favorite is career discovery. This is a service that can be used when somebody has had very little. So like maybe our transition age kids, very little work experience, or maybe they just don't know what to do, or they've been in the same field for a long time and they need other interest. So what the provider will do is take them out into the community and let them experience what is around them. They'll pick 3 different themes, and based upon that, they'll see how those different areas can translate into a job that they would find fulfilling. Benefits analysis and education. I know that we've talked a lot about this here recently. This is a detailed report done by a work incentives planner, and all 3 of us in Butler County on the employment team are certified for this service. We are able to we partner with the Social Security Office, and we obtain what's called a BPQI, a benefits planning query, where we can look on the person's record and determine how many trial work periods they have, how many they've used, what the economic impact might be on food assistance, housing, as well as Medicaid. And then we can go over eligibility for MBIWD, Medicaid buy-in for the working disabled. So it's wonderful to educate people who may be on the fence about working. And our SSA team does a great job collaborating with us when they identify those people on their caseloads that may have a little bit of a hesitation. What you will see, kind of one of our most used services, is job development. This is where a job developer will work with a person on a weekly basis who is looking for a job. They'll come up with a resume, they'll help them sign up for Ohio Means Jobs to get job alerts, and they'll actually go out and do interviews and even mock interviews with the person to practice. So you will see that service quite a bit. Because the weather is starting to get good, we're seeing an increase in the number of people that want to work and earn money for the summertime. And then individual employment services. This is what job coaching falls under. And this is once the person has obtained the job, we want to give them the support that they need to either stay stable in the job or to grow. It helps identify barriers that they might be facing in the workplace, any needed accommodations. So it is a service that is very person-centered. So somebody could maybe only need a little bit of job coaching here and there, or we have some people that need, more intense service, and that's okay. That's the whole point of each of the services, is to really get to know that person and how they would best benefit. So I know I said a lot, but I will put my contact information in the chat. And if you have specific scenarios or you have certain questions about services, call me up anytime, and we can do a meeting together. But I hope that this at least gives you kind of the highlights of what our employment team is about. And we make it a point to be really well known in the community. So you may see me out at a chamber meeting or at a confab meeting with Ohio Means Jobs. We just really try to stay engaged with the community so that we can get the best outcomes possible. All right. Well, thank you.
Oh, I had a question. I'm sorry. Just because we have, parents listening in who might be aware of OOD and the services they offer, could you address when someone might use OOD and someone might use Butler County DD's Employment Navigator services?
Yes. So with OOD, they have a bit more funding where they can provide more intense coaching at the beginning of the job. The analogy that I like to use is they're kind of like the Navy SEALs. So when somebody starts a job, they can come in really intense and offer a whole lot of hours. But then once they're stable on the job for like 90 days or so, depending on the person, just using an average, then Butler County DD can then kick in and use services, because as we know, not everyone has a waiver, and we can support people with local dollars, but we just really have to justify that we have used all alternative resources. And I think that, between our SSA department and the employment navigation team, we have a really good partnership to help identify people and get them where they need to go.
Oh, I agree. I just wanted it for the parents, so they would have that understanding and less confusion about who does what. I appreciate it. And you're right. We have
it's an all-around process. So we have a wonderful relationship with OOD. We actually meet with them monthly. And we kind of collaborate together on that. And so the person gets the most hours they can.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, just again, with the ages, these services, you can tap into them. 14 is usually the start, like with OOD. And you were probably as well that, high schoolish age, right? The 14 and up, or do you click in more?
So we start to require what we call a path to employment to be identified starting at age 14. And then I've worked with a lady the other day that's up to 67 and enjoys working. So really there is no age limit.
And something else I want to mention as parents listen through on this presentation, one thing that we stumbled on last night when we were talking about DD services was when we talked about the IEPs. When you have an IEP in the school, you can invite, you can have a team to go with you in these IEPs. So if you're working with a county board of developmental disabilities, mention to your transition coordinator, hey, I want to invite a team to my IEP. The coordinator can come, OOD will come. You can get a team so that they get to know your child or student. The OOD I know has mentioned they like to get to know them so that when they do graduate and do go into the workforce, they know that person as an individual, they know their strengths and weaknesses a lot better. So I think it's important just to be able to invite. I know I would love to have a group around. IEPs always felt like outnumbered during IEPs. So it would be nice to have those additional agents that are advocating or supporting your child, during this time. So great. Thank you, Beth. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'll put my contact information in the chat, and then that way people can openly contact me if they should have any additional things.
Thank you. I think it's interesting to see how all these companies are beginning to hire. COVID, I know, is a little bumpy, but I think everything's starting to open up pretty well again.
Well, and I think we have to give kudos to the people we serve, because they have stepped up working all throughout the pandemic, right on the front lines. So I think that's pretty incredible.
And from what I know, a lot of the individuals that have gotten jobs, they are hard workers. They have stuck with it so well through everything. And they're so dedicated. They're such dedicated employees.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of a kind.
Yes, that's all great things. Let's see. I think we were going to next hear from Connie.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Connie Mehlman. I'm one of the Community Connections coordinators with Butler County Board of DD. I am going to give a little presentation here and share my screen. I think the biggest thing that I'm going to bring to the table tonight is maybe a little bit how things have changed over the years. I've been with the board for 25 years and 32 years in this field. And I think when most people look to the Board of DD, they used to look to us to provide all the services. And just with as the residential services have changed over the years, and day program services of who they're provided by have changed over the years, so do the recreation opportunities. And I think that's a good thing, because I think it opens up to people having more choice of what they're going to do in the community. So I'm going to try to share my screen. I always say the word try. Is this my screen here? Okay. I don't know why I'm seeing a whole bunch of things. Okay, hang on. That is not what I'm supposed to be sharing. Hang on a minute. That's what I'm supposed to be sharing. Do you see a slideshow? Yay, nay, okay. All righty. Sorry, it just takes me a minute to get rolling. I always get very nervous when it comes to the computer. So the first thing you can see on the screen is our Community Connections Department. We connect people with developmental disabilities in the community, hoping to give them opportunity and the most support they need to have happy and meaningful lives. And I think that's just a general statement, because a happy, meaningful life means different. It's different to everybody. What I like to do, maybe what Beth likes to do, whatever makes us happy. We try to provide information to guide them in that direction. And in our department, we like to say that we connect people. Sometimes we're finding donations or avenues for people to receive some things that they might need to help them in their lives, whether that's going back to work or maybe getting an apartment. And we also try to provide some routes for advocacy. Okay, the first thing I'm going to tell you, if you're on this tonight, or you're someone that's going to tune in later and watch us, you need to sign up for what's called our Community Connections newsletter. And the reason I put in bold today, please sign up today. I know Patty already listed in the chat, butlerdd.org. When you go to that page today, you're going to go to the lower right-hand corner and you'll see newsletter. All you have to do is put your name, your email in there, and you can sign up. There's two options. There's the Community Connections newsletter and a quarterly newsletter. I highly recommend that you sign up for both. And when you're on that page, I encourage you to also check out up in the browser area, you'll see a resource tab. I'm going to go over both of those ideas on why you should connect with the newsletter. The newsletter goes out every other week, typically on a Wednesday. Patricia Dawson is the person who puts that newsletter together. And I will say it's quite an undertaking. We get resources from everybody. Patty sends us the SALT information. We make sure that's in there. We have people who are sending in information from all over our county, all over our state, and sometimes outside of the state. And you might think, well, why would I want to look at that if it's got information from outside of our state? Well, there might be a class that you can sit in on, or some resources that you can learn about, or an educational tool. We also, of course, list things from within the county as far as recreational activities that are going on. If you have someone who's interested in Special Olympics, that information will go out in there when, you know, they're having their signups for swimming, or maybe it's basketball. I know the Joe Nuxle Miracle League field softball is getting ready to start in April. That went out in there on how to register, how to get information, who to connect with. So there's something new in there all the time. And there's also these things called live binders that you can go at the bottom and look up different information. Like if you're looking on, maybe you're looking on some guidance to help you with the IEP process. There are resources in there that might help you with that. So anything that's going on. I also am going to ask Patty to put Patricia's email. I didn't put it on my page here. It's pkdawson@butlerdd.org. Maybe you're involved with the group and you would like to have your information put into the newsletter to share with other people. We have a group called Lakota Cares that's out on Facebook right now. I joined their group, and sometimes they'll send me information, or I'll send them information to put up on their Facebook page. So I think it's just all about sharing resources and what's available. And even though I've been around for a long, long time, I don't know every resource that's in our county or in our state. And maybe you know one that's not listed in our resource directory as well. Or perchance maybe you go in there and you know something has changed and something that you're looking up, and we haven't caught that because we have hundreds of resources in there. You can reach out to us and help us update our resource tab. A few things that we do directly through Butler County DD. I'm going to go over those as well. We have a group called the Give Back Crew, and when we are doing volunteer opportunities in the community, you will find those in the Community Connections newsletter. You can also find them on our webpage, which we already went over, the butlerdd.org. But what the Give Back Crew is, it's a group of people with and without disabilities volunteering in the community together. Sometimes we have companies who sign up to come out and volunteer with us, or families, or just people who are looking to get out and be active within the community. We do a lot of our partnering with the metro parks. They seem to keep us busy. We're just now ramping that back up, and we've missed going out and, believe it or not, putting mulch out or getting rocks out of the soccer field, because it's a good time just to interact and learn about the importance of giving back to the community. We try to teach that as well, because a lot of times I think we think about the community giving to us, you know, because I'm out there asking a lot of times for things. We have a golf event tomorrow night benefiting Best Buddies. So I was out asking for dollars and this is that and that. But I think it's also important for the community to see us giving back. And I think it's an important tool to teach. And Jenny Mann's in charge of that, but it'll be listed in the newsletter when the opportunities go out. We also have a group called Cookies and Connections. I don't know if you guys know about that group, but it's a partnership between Butler County DD and the ARC, and they get together about 4 times a year. And I think the more people that get involved, they even might consider expanding the number of times. And basically everything that the group does, it's said in the name. They sit down, they connect over usually having coffee and cookies or pastries or whatever they have for the evening. And it gives parents and caregivers just a chance to interact with other people that might be experiencing the same difficulties they might be experiencing in their life. And or someone, what I always think is really neat to see a family member that maybe somebody who's been around the block a time or two, and you know, they've kind of paved a path and learned from their own mistakes. They can share with our younger families that it's going to be okay. These are some of the things that I've done, and just form some relationships. That usually is done quarterly. That will also be in the Community Connections newsletter. And sometimes they have guest speakers come in as well. So it's an opportunity to also have people come in and tell their story, or, you know, whatever, you know, they have on the docket for the night. It's always a good turnout. And the last several times they've had it, it's been outdoors under a pavilion, but I think they'll probably be moving back indoors again with hopefully COVID dying down here a little bit. Okay, some of you may have heard of the Best Buddies program, and I usually like to mention this. It's not, and it's one of my favorite programs that I get to do, but we definitely don't have enough chapters to accommodate everybody in the Butler County area. If you have someone who has graduated, I have a mistake in there. If you are graduation high school, if you've graduated from high school, you can join the Miami University chapter, and that does require getting back and forth to Miami for their monthly events. If you are in school and do not have a chapter, we would love for people to start a chapter. So if you're a parent out there and you have a son or daughter that maybe is in June, I don't know how old, 14, what's a freshman in high school, and you don't have a Best Buddies chapter at your high school, reach out to me and maybe you can connect us with some people at the school that want to get Best Buddies going. And if you're not familiar with Best Buddies, it's just a program where we match people with and without disabilities for friendship. And I know, especially after the junior high level, sometimes, people have trouble making friends in school. We do have a very successful chapter at Talawanda High School. Took a long time to get our foot in the door there, but we found a wonderful English teacher there. She's the advisor. And they do some great things within their school district. They'll be participating in our Best Buddies Walk that's going to be in Hamilton this year on April 23rd. And you can reach out to me if you want more information. We also have a citizens program going now, but that's more for our folks who are maybe a little bit older, who don't want to be with the college age kids. For example, I have a buddy, her name's Mandy. She's in her 50s and we have a lot of things in common. And we don't have big social events to go to. We just make our own social events and we go out and have a good time. So that's kind of what's going on with the Best Buddies program, but I'm always welcome conversation for people who might want to reach out and get more information. You can become an ambassador through Best Buddies Ohio training program. And that is a way to learn how to share your story. And what I mean by that, this is a program for people who do receive services. And I will say the youngest ages we've probably had to participate are maybe around 16, a little higher. You don't have to be in the Best Buddies program to participate, but we do share this opportunity through our newsletters and on our Facebook page when they become available. And what it is, when we have had it in person, we get volunteers from the community to come in and partner one-on-one with the person with the disability to teach them kind of how to tell their story through speech writing. It's a very simple process that we go through. It's not, a whole semester in school that you're learning, but it's really, they teach you how to do an opening, write your story and have an ending. And then people can use that in many facets of life. It helps them with, I think it helps with job interviews. I think it helps people to speak up in their IEP process. I think it teaches people just how to have conversation, or maybe they want to get a little bit more involved in the community or in the advocacy track. And this is the picture of Jody. She's been in my Best Buddies program for a long time. And she went through the training program and she was actually up at the State House, and she's sitting in the senator's chair there. The senator is on the other side, listening to Jody kind of tell a story and why we were there. We were there looking for funding. And who better to tell somebody about, how they've enjoyed a program. And at this time it was about Best Buddies, telling their experience. And she learned how to write a speech. And we have lots of people who have learned how to tell a story in this sharing program. And it doesn't have to be about Best Buddies, or it doesn't have to be about advocacy. I've had people write a story about their cat, or, they just wrote a story about whatever was close to their heart, and they get an opportunity at the end to get up and give their speech if they choose to. So we're just trying to teach people how to tell their own stories so we don't have to tell it for them. And the last couple of years we've done them online and they've been successful. I personally enjoy having it in person, but we I think in the last 3 years, Best Buddies had 245 people across the state participate in that program. So I think that number kind of speaks for itself. And we're still working on a way for someone who can't read to tell their stories. I'm trying to encourage Best Buddies maybe to do like a storyboard type of storytelling. So we're trying to progress in that area, but it's a great little program for people to participate. And we always need volunteers from the community to help as well. So it gives our community members a chance maybe to meet somebody with a disability, increase their comfort level, and maybe educate them a little bit as well. Okay, people in the audience, if you are a self-advocate and you are 16 years or older, or you have a young adult or an older adult that would like to join Speak Up, we meet the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. at Janet Clemens Center. We also have an opportunity for you to participate through Zoom now. It always gives me stress every month when I have to set up the Zoom owl thing at the Janet Clemens Center, so we can have people joining on screen and people joining in person. But last month, knock on wood, it went pretty good. So that was one good thing that COVID did bring to our Speak Up group. We never offered a Zoom option. And with transportation being an issue, shame on me, I didn't offer that sooner. So that is something for people to get involved in. And it's not all about, I mean, we do things about your rights and responsibilities. We also do fun things. We play a game every meeting towards the end to help people learn how to interact a little bit better with their peers and get out of their shell. We've done trivia games. The game before the Super Bowl, I had 50 questions on football, and it was so great to see how many people knew all the answers. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I think out of 50 questions, there's only 2 that someone in the group did not know the answer to. And they weren't the easiest questions either. I made them, pretty hard. We've played Jeopardy. Sometimes we do some role playing just to learn about telling a story. So we try to make it a lot of fun, and we're also getting into volunteering a little bit. I think it was in December, we did a drive for Surf City, and we collected canned goods and non-perishables and plastic supplies and plates and forks and all that kind of good stuff that you need to serve the community. And then the next month, we had the guy who runs Surf City come in and talk to the group about what it meant for them to do what they did by collecting stuff and giving back, and how we can continue to volunteer with them, because I think it's important for everybody to learn that maybe there's somebody in the community that doesn't have it as good as we have it. So, we all have had struggles in our life. So we like to teach about that. And our next thing that we're doing, we're partnering with Goodwill, and we're going to do a Fill the Van Day in May, where we encourage, we'll do it over a 3-day period, but we've got the big white vans at Janet Clemens Center. Our goal is to fill that van with clothes and small kitchen appliances, and we're going to partner with Goodwill. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And you can also reach out to me regarding that if you have some interest in volunteering for Speak Up, coming to Speak Up. We'd love to grow that group. Okay, how you can get involved. You can like us on Facebook. We have a pretty active Facebook page. If you don't like Facebook, that's okay. You can reach out to us at butlerdd.org. And another way people can get involved in their community is to join a social group and to volunteer. So that kind of rounds up my presentation. I think some of my coworkers know I could probably go on forever, but I'm not going to. But there is a lot going on in the community, and I highly encourage people just to get involved. Try things one time. If somebody comes to Speak Up and it's not the group for them, that's okay. We're not going to force somebody to come back. But if people don't get out and try things that are going on in their community, we'll list in community connections. Like we might put all the hikes that are going on with the local parks, or the links to find out what's going on around you. It doesn't have to be a specific activity for somebody with a disability. There's so many fun things that are going on in our own community. And I really, truly think over all the years I've been working in the field that people in our community every year are becoming more accepting of all people. So does anybody have any questions?
I think when your student or your child gets involved, like Connie said, it helps bring up their confidence, helps them be more outgoing, and in turn, then it helps with them in the employment line. It helps them with other aspects of their life, just getting involved in many of those groups, whichever group you're comfortable with. I think it's a great opportunity, and they get to meet other kids too. It's like a big social event. They always enjoy getting together, whether it's through Special Olympics or the Joe Nuxle, or through some of the meetings.
Yeah, or Challenger Baseball. I didn't mention there is a group, we are not in charge of it. It's called the Young Social Crew, and it's people 18 to 40. It used to be 18 to 35. And I think a couple of folks who organize it are getting older, so they up the age. But it was developed by individuals who receive services. Most of them are community employed. They miss social life because they're working full-time in the community, as they should be. So they decided they wanted to just have an activity once a month where they would get together, and they didn't want any of their parents there or any caregivers there or any of us there. We helped them get their Facebook page started, and we gave them some guidance on how to manage the group, but they're off and running, and they've gone to Pumpkin Fest, go bowling, they've gone to Barn and Bunk. But I will admit, the very first night when they had their event, I wanted to go down so bad and peek in the window to see how it was going, but we didn't. But it's been great to see how they've progressed as a group. And so that might be a group for somebody, that might want to get out and have some fun. But like I said, until you try it, you're not going to know. And it's fun. The last thing I'll say, I love to see how people progress after they give something a try. I had one gentleman, he's now very active in Speak Up and in Best Buddies. And when he first came to both of the activities, he literally stood outside the room to listen and crouched in a corner, wouldn't even come in. Now he's answering all the trivia questions. And because I found out that's something that he liked too, once I saw the games going. But in the beginning, he didn't even want to get out of the car and come in. And so it took a little time for him to warm up, but to see him blossom socially, it's just been, one of my highlights over the last couple of years.
It's been interesting watching the kids growing up too, like, just watching with Special Olympics, and, their Best Buddies and all these different things, and to see how they've gone, just come up through the system and how they've gotten stronger. It is a great thing to see. I did want to speak up. I remember the one I had attended some years ago, you had a speaker on voting, and it was surprising how many things came out about, they talked about voting and voting rights, and how many struggles the individuals with disabilities had at the polls. That's what came out, and what they could do to, if they were challenged at the polls, what did they need to do? And the instruction that was helpful of some of the things they would face, when they went to the polls to vote. I thought that was very interesting. Just some of the things you don't think about are challenges out there, they can address during Speak Up. And then you mentioned the newsletter. I know we see several, and I've sent to Connie several, just different activities, and the webinars that are out there, you can tap into those, and you get great speakers like Temple Grading gave a lot of webinar presentations for free especially over the last 2 years. And Temple Grading, if you don't know who she is a individual with autism, but she has, like a PhD in, she's a veterinary in sciences, but she's developed it and patented so many things, but she understands the autism world because she herself has autism and how she overcome it. And she's a great speaker. So, you hear things like that on some of these webinars that kind of opened up. You said there was a plus and a minus to COVID, but the plus was suddenly we were able to tap into many more trainings and many more, so many other things going on around us. So sign up for that newsletter. If you can't find it, go to, the ways to sign up, go to the website, like Connie mentioned. You can email me, you can email Connie, and anybody that's on here. I think we have a couple emails here going on in the chat box. You can email any of them and ask, hey, I'm interested in this. So
It's very simple. You send me your name and your email, and then we enter it into Constant Contacts, and you're in. Free of charge.
Lots of great information, lots of great things going around in Southwest Ohio, Butler County, and in the Cincinnati area. There's a lot lot of activities. It's almost, when I see everything coming through, you have your choice. It's amazing, everything that comes through. So if there isn't anything else, we'll go on to Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Caldwell, the Transition Services Coordinator at Butler County DD. I also carry a small caseload. I too am going to try to share. And so I can't see if it shared or not. It did. Great, 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 great. So you can see my cover page. All right. So, I enjoyed hearing how long Connie's been with the board. I too have been around that long and have seen a lot of changes. So, and like Connie, I'm not going to keep us all night talking about 25 years of change. We're going to talk about transition, and my first slide is who receives like transition services in terms of support coordination. Like locally, we call it support coordination, but it's really service and support administration per the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities. So parents, you might hear those things used interchangeably. So if you hear somebody say support coordinator, it's also the service and support administrator, also known as SSA. So like Patty had mentioned earlier, we start transition around age 14. We go, we say 22. It's after the youth graduates from high school and gets a little bit settled into their adult life is when they would transition and have an adult support coordinator, if that's what they want. All of our services are voluntary, but so, things go really well, you may or may not need a support coordinator ongoing. And then the other caveat about these ages is we try to, in the SSA department, have like one SSA per family. We really try to do that. So, there'll be times where a transition SSA has somebody that might have a 10-year-old sibling. So we just, that they'll be the SSA for the sibling as well. Same thing for adults. I know there's some brothers, the brother's like 24, the younger brother's getting ready to turn 22, but we have both of the brothers on this team. So I'm trying to keep, what service and support administration is kind of in a nutshell, but it's so much. As I'm sure as you're attending sessions, you're learning. Basically, it's transition planning for all your life areas. And we collaborate with the youth, the families, and then partner agencies. We have quite a lengthy list of partner agencies. The school districts, opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. There's a variety of mental health agencies at the table. Ohio Means Jobs. We also work with the adult day service providers, vocational habilitation providers. As part of that transition piece, it just depends on where someone's falling and what they want. And so when we're doing transition, we, like Patty also mentioned this, maybe I should just let Patty do the presentation because she had talked about, like, we really do want to be at the table, your IEP meetings, where you're developing the plan, your ETR meetings, where you're doing an assessment on the youth and where they want to go, what are the goals, how are we going to get there? And then these EPMs they're unique to Project Life and Project Search students. Project Life and Project Search is a collaboration between Butler Tech, local school districts, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, and Butler County DD. So The interns that go to Project Life and Project Search all have employment planning meetings, and generally they're quarterly. And we like to go because we want to be on that, stay in step with the student and their trajectory, how they're meeting their goals. And so we can, provide some of those services to the youth that Beth had talked about, if those are needed. So internally, we have, most people in our agency have what's called an individual service plan. Those service plans are related to people that have ongoing funding. So we have this document called the monitoring guide that we use to help assess and plan and verify the need for continued service. And it's called a monitoring guide. And we do those on an annual basis and update those as needed. And then just to let you know, the Ohio ISP is going to be here soon, and transition age youth will be a part of that Ohio ISP. And at least they'll have a face page. I think they're leaving it up to counties as to what's going to happen with transition to aged youth. But no matter what, we're going to continue to assess and plan and provide support and links to resources. So there's a lot of resources that we're aware of. I feel like a lot of times we have to be like the jack of all trades. So what we do there, I just listed out some of the issues you might think about, but I'm sure there's more. But if you're having issues at school, depending upon what it is, we have resources that can help. We are not experts in education, so we're not going to tell you what the rules and regulations and laws are, but we can point you out to, if that's your struggle, we can give you resources for that. We have the resources and a relationship with the parent mentors at school that can help you navigate school, because as Patty said, it is intimidating for a parent and a youth to sit at a table with a bunch of school people, maybe 10 school people to maybe 3, people related to the youth that are there to, like, everybody ideally is on the same page, but it can be intimidating. Schools also have liaisons that they work with youth and families, particularly around people that are having, COVID, especially, like, so many people lost their jobs, were out of work, couldn't work because of COVID. So school liaisons can help with like financial resources. And they're affiliated with the schools. We're aware of some alternative placements that youth can use to go to other schools, particularly the Autism Scholarship and the John Peterson Scholarship. You're probably notified of these things as part of the IEP because the schools have to do that. But we also know about alternative placement. Some children do not thrive at their home district, and alternative placement, can be initiated by the school district. It can be a conversation starter with your IEP team to talk about what other options are available for the youth. Youth with developmental disabilities are, similar, and they're typically neurodeveloped peers in that, they can have behavioral health challenges as well. So in-house with Butler County DD, we have a program called Family Focus. We're very skilled at doing assessments and figuring out how they can help within a short period of time with some of the behaviors people have. Sometimes it's as simple as they'll help you set up routines and schedules, social stories to explain things very simply to a youth. And that's like a really good first step, in my opinion. that we have in-house. But then there's also a variety of mental health and behavioral health agencies in the community. Children's Hospital has the Developmental Disabilities and Behavior Pediatrics Department. There's quite a few local mental health providers that we often work with. And then Marikey, I put that in red. Marikey, we used to have the direct contract. It's a private company that serves dually diagnosed. It's the dually diagnosed treatment team. And the dual diagnosis that Marikey serves is mental health and developmental disabilities. And they're available via, we now have a contract with our partner that you might know, the Southwest Ohio Council of Governments. So we can do, the SSAs will do referrals. And with Marikey comes a team of professionals. They have nurses, they have behavior specialists to help out with youth that have very significant behaviors. There we go. So we'll also help youth that have medical and physical accessibility challenges. We'll help find resources for home modifications, equipment and therapy, and try to work out providers. And then funding gets to be serious, especially when you're talking about home modifications, because like private insurance, Medicaid does not pay for home modifications. And sometimes that's the most helpful thing for people, is a home modification or a van modification. And so sometimes we'll help with these things, you know, depending upon the actual need for it, you know, and through an assessment by an occupational therapist. We contract again with the SWOCOG for those things. We help with benefits. Now, help meaning, well, the how-tos, how do you apply? Where do you apply? And we can link you to some case managers related to your benefits, particularly CareSource. CareSource, as the managed care Medicaid provider, has collaborated with Children's Hospital to do that case management, and they'll call us and just check up on people. It's kind of a nice, and they'll collaborate with parents on navigating, you know, the big Children's Hospital and all the different clinics they have. Wraparound is a service through the Butler County Family and Children First Council. I think I got all the FCs in there. So usually it's for youth that have intense challenges, multi-agency collaboration and funding. Some youth go to wraparound. They don't need any funding, but they need a group of professionals or parents, because they have parent mentors, just to help problem solve some issues. So we work with them quite frequently. And then, as Beth talked about, you know, we'll help with employment needs for transition through OOD, Ohio Means Jobs, our Butler County DD employment navigators. And we can do the referrals for OOD, parents themselves, youth, schools, a variety of people can do those referrals, but we're happy to do those. I had talked earlier about we're going to have some knowledge about adult day programs and vocational habilitation places. Again, it kind of depends on what the youth and the family want and need as far as services. Community activity linkage. I think Connie did an excellent job about talking about the numerous things in the community. So I won't really go into detail about that. I do want to talk about family support services, because that's probably like one of the biggest, I don't know, it feels like one of the biggest programs that's used for people that don't have a DD waiver. And we're going to talk about waivers very briefly in a minute. But family support services is a funding stream using our local dollars to help people that live at home with their families, get some disability related services and goods. Now, if you have a support coordinator, your support coordinator is the referral source for that program. So it's things like respite, it's things like camp, adaptive equipment. There's just a variety of things that that can be purchased using that fund. Now, I will say there's no guarantee of the funds. It's kind of first come, first served. And when they're gone for the year, they're typically gone for the year. We did add, Butler County DD did add a new feature to family support services called childcare. And so childcare, I want to talk briefly about the difference between childcare and respite. So respite gives parents a break during their off hours. Childcare would be the care that a child needs, a school-age child, while the parents are working. So just to be clear about that, because there are like two separate funds. So there is some childcare funds available. And if you have a support coordinator, you would just talk to your support coordinator about using those funds. And they'll put you in contact again with Amy Holland, who does quite a bit. And then waiting list assessment. SSA again is your link to the waiting list assessment. And the waiting list assessment is the precursor to getting a waiver. If you think your child is in need of a waiver, don't hesitate to ask for a waiting list assessment or to have that conversation with your support coordinator so that you can talk about all the supports that are available and use those. And then once, the other thing with waivers, another funding stream is called an individual budget or local funds. We use local funds a little bit more frequently with people, I think, that are working who need a little bit of help with their job. It used to be called job retention. Now it's independent community supports, right, Beth? Independent community employment needs. And then lastly, as far as SSAs, we do currently have like 2 SSAs that administer waivers and local funds for the youth in this transition age. And the rationale for that is so that they can have that specialized transition knowledge and they have the waiver knowledge to be able to do that job in a very complete way, all-encompassing way, than if they just had an adult SSA who might not know all things transition. So I think that's it in a nutshell for me. Obviously, I'll take any questions. Oop.
So, with the SSA department, when you go through the eligibility process and you get an SSA or transition coordinator, I just want to make sure parents, that is with questions like for your child's services or available funding or anything you have a question, start with your SSA or transition coordinator, ask them questions. So Amy mentioned home modification, or something related to that. So you're not sure exactly, a lot of times parents don't know what to ask. And then the other would be who to ask. So let's say things you observe, maybe something's going on in their life. You can ask the question of what you're seeing with your child. So let's say your child maybe trips a lot when they get in and out of the tub, or maybe they trip a lot coming up and down stairs. That would be, just mention it to your SSA. Say, hey, she have struggled with steps. He or she struggles with, certain things around the house, you know, I'm not sure other instances, but just mention it to your SSA or your transition coordinator and say, is there something we can do? You know, just have that question or invite that conversation. Or maybe the other thing would be, my child has trouble associating with, you know, maybe the opposite sex, maybe having conversations in a group, maybe group conversations bother them. You know, mention those kind of things to your caseworker, your transition coordinator, mention those things. And there's probably a service out there that can help them overcome some of these difficulties. And even like with Connie's, the Speak Up, just being in some of those speaking programs and just getting around other individuals, that helps them too. But when you stumble across something and say, you know, your child's getting frustrated about something, I would mention it to my SSA, and don't hesitate to email them or call them about things you're observing, school, home, work, whichever part.
Definitely. I mean, we want to know little things before they become big things. It's much easier to deal with when things are small.
Mm-hmm. And things come up. You don't know. Like maybe, let's say a work situation, you know, maybe they're getting upset because another employee, you know, you don't know, maybe there is a little bit of they're not getting along with another employee. Maybe they don't understand the other employee, you know, what they're saying to them. Or maybe there is you know, hey, they're doing this and they're not supposed to, and you know, how to talk to their supervisor, you know, these kind of things, just daily day-to life, whether it's involving work or just socializing, you know. Sometimes when they get in a group situation, and that's where Speak Up, I think, would help in some of these other activities. But I know I've seen individuals in group situations just get overwhelmed by all the sensory overload, and they can't communicate within those situations. And I think just getting them exposed is great, but you know, talk again to your SSA. And I mentioned it last night and I'm earlier in the session, you know, bring these people into your IEPs. That's so helpful. And I did do, when you had that Ohio ISP, they mentioned in there the Charting the Life course, we will be having them speak in April. So that's a helpful thing too for planning your child's future planning. Let's see, I think that was, let's see. We posted some links out there because it was mentioned, Amy, you mentioned Project Life, Project Search. We put their link there, and the parent mentor, I'm thinking there's another parent mentor link. I have to look it up. This goes back to the OCECD, but I'm thinking there's another parent mentor link. Parent mentors, for those who don't know, are a great advocacy for you to tap into at your schools. Depending what school you go to or what county you're in, there is assigned parent mentors, and they're an advocate that will go with you also into an IEP. They're your school, your person to relate to in the school system. And I'm thinking, Amy, you'll have to correct me too. Project Life, Project Search application process is already taking place at this point, the interviews, is that right? Or is
It's done.
It's done, okay. So if you're interested in the Project Life, when you look at those links for something also as a employment, transitioning to employment, they start it in school. You can look at the website, but most of the application process starts in the fall, I believe is when it's best to start looking at that stuff.
Yeah, generally it does start in the fall. I think they're thinking about opening it up a little bit earlier. But they would still have the interviews and the reviews in the, you know, the winter, like starting in January, like we did this year.
Yeah, Amy and I had the pleasure this year of sitting in on the interviews, and the kids were phenomenal. They did a great job and they were so dedicated to the process.
And I think when working with all these agencies, your child comes out so much stronger, so much more confident in an interview process, in an employment process. I mean, it's great to see as they tap into all these different services. I know it's a lot, that we presented on tonight. There's a lot of information, but to break it down, you just think, where am I at right now? Reach out to that transition coordinator and just start piecing, start moving in the direction, or email any one of these, depending on what your particular interests are at this time. I will say that depending on what age your child is, I know we had 14 to 22 on the poll. There was a lot in that poll. If you get started earlier, the better. Very personal experience. I didn't know about services until we were like 3 months from graduation with our son, and I tell you, it was a mountain of of stress, of paperwork, and I was able to tap in at that point with the county board. I didn't know these places existed, and we were able to tap into them. And with everybody working on the team, we were able to get through a lot of the getting through all the services, getting eligibility processes behind us, and getting through it. So with that, is there anything else anybody wants to add before I close the recording? Okay, well, I'm going to close the recording. So then anybody that's on the call here you'll be able to unmute and ask questions. We like to have discussions like following, and I know sometimes recordings can kind of make, people don't want to totally open up with the recording going on. So I'll be closing the recording here 1 second. And I want to thank you all of you again for your wonderful presentation tonight. Let's